In this episode, we're excited to speak with Tina Huang, a talented designer with over 11 years of experience across both startups and established companies in Taiwan and Singapore. Originally a math major, Tina discovered her passion for design through solving complex problems and delivering intuitive, impactful solutions. Join us as Tina shares her journey into the design world, along with her approach to choosing the right opportunity for herself. Let's dive into her story. Tina, how are you today? I hope you're doing well. How do you get into the design industry?
So actually, my background is mathematics. So when I was in my second year in the uni, I quickly realized that mathematics is not something I am passionate about. So in my third year college, I switched to study visual communication designs. And eventually, I start to apply my master degree through my visual communication design major. And this is how I start my entire design journey.
Oh, and where do you study?
I studied in UK for my master degree.
Is there differences in the education background and where your upbringing is? From what I know, you're from Taiwan, right? So the education systems must be very different.
Yes, I think this is the main thing that changed me completely. Also, how I towards a challenge or a questions. Back in Taiwan, where we were students, we were been trained to be a receiver. We are tend to get used to like information is coming from teacher. All the answers is coming from teacher. I don't know how to say in English, but basically it's 伸手牌. Any question, you just ask teacher, hey, give me the answer.
More receiving. I'm just absorbing. Just tell me what you want to tell me.
Yeah. And this is how we train. So we didn't have ability to find answers by ourselves. So this really struggled me a lot when I was studying in UK. My professor, he don't expect us to come to him and ask for the answers. Even the answer is already stated in the textbook, he will still encourage us to find out by ourselves. And he also encouraged try to fail. Because only when you fail, then he knew you're trying new things. You're trying to figure out how to solve certain problems.
Okay. So you feel like you at that time you're more open to the Western education style, more challenge the status quo, doing the more practical. I think in terms of you yourself continuing this journey for this long, and what are the criterias that you put to yourself to decide how do you get into a company, or what are the things that you would consider the most?
To be honest, initially I don't know that there is a principle in mind where I was looking for a job. Only recent years I realized that I do have in my subconscious mind. Yeah. So first, I usually will have to imagine myself using the product, and I have to be an advocate. This product you'll be using every day, and I have to resonate the problems and really understand the pain point, so I can get close to the user, and this will bring me the benefit when it comes to designs.
Have a personal opinions, basically.
At least you are a user. And at the same time, when you do user interview, you can also be advocated for your company, for your brand.
Okay.
Yeah, so this product for sure have to be something I really can imagine myself using it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other criteria? I mean, do you look for name brands, like, Meta and all fans companies? Is that a big attractive factor for you?
I mean, I'm no different from the rest of the people. I do look for it. However, there are tons of product in those companies. If I apply the job, I will definitely look for the product I genuinely like and I will use. I have to make sure the team is what I really like.
Okay. So you mentioned about the team that you really like. In the interview process, do you want to get to know about the teams that you'll be working in or the culture?
I did have interview with them before. So they will have like a general interview process. And once you pass their criteria about the hard skill and soft skills, and then you will get to like a team match settings, you can select the team that you like.
Okay, select the team that you like. Oh, that's pretty good that you have a choice. But how do you know which team you would like? Is it the product? Again, back to the essence of the product that you feel passionate about. Is it how you kind of find out about this is the right team for you?
Oh, maybe I didn't clarify. So when I select the team I like, basically HR will contact the hiring manager and you will have a team match interview. And
Mm,
during that team match interview, you will get to know your future bosses and what the team is actually working on. And the hiring manager will also evaluate whether you are the right candidate for them. I would say for Fang, those top companies, their interview process is quite a bit daunting lah, and tiring because the actual interview only start during team match.
I see.
Mm.
And what are the things that you feel would actually help other people to get familiar with this and feel more comfortable in during that interview process?
I think you definitely need to study all the products that is
Mm,
currently in the market
okay.
and read as many articles as possible and try to use the product before entering the hiring manager interview because this can give you benefit of understanding on what is the current product status. Usually you can also kind of guess their company strategy already.
Okay. So from the product company strategies and all that, those are would be your top selection criteria. What about the hiring manager? How are you kind of, get to know the boss? I'm sure that that would be part of your consideration criteria, how you work with the person best, right?
Boss is definitely another big chunk about the decision that I will decided to join or not. Because your boss, it's someone that can help you thrive and growth and give you not just career direction, also life directions. So I think finding a boss that clicks during the conversation, you can already tell whether, what you're talking about, they can resonate your struggles or your experience, some of the question they ask, and also the feedback after your question.
Hmm, hmm.
This is a signal that whether this person can click.
Okay. But it's got to be tough because during the interview, most people want to present the best of themselves. And then the interviewer, like hiring manager, as one, would actually drilling ask a lot of questions. That's very standard, typical process usually. But how do you, through that process, finding that essence of this is, if this is person that you would be working for?
Because through the hiring manager interview, only 45 minutes. Yeah, actually, it's really hard to tell. But how I try is I try to extract myself from that interview because everyone will think that, oh, hiring manager is evaluating me. But actually, it's both sides. We, as a candidate, we are also evaluate hiring manager because that's the person you're going to work with for the future. So I usually will try to ask like, is there any time for me to ask any questions related to the product, related to the teams, and also based on the question they ask, you can kind of signal how much knowledge they know about product. And also you can ask the person that how do he manage the team and how do he think what is a perfect working model that he think that work best for him.
Interesting. I think that's a very good perspective to pass down to the junior that as you're to have that conversation, it's important also to kind of interview the hiring manager. Also, if this is the person to right coach or guidance can provide the right chemistries for you to actually thrive and grow in. And I mean, I think probably a lot of the people who just fresh out of college would not think like that. They just want to get in. They would want to answer the questions. And but it's also the other way around. That's a very good perspective to get into. So I think in terms of kind of continuing through this journey, I'm just wondering about like, that you're no longer interested in this topics or this product. What do you do? I mean, how do you handle that?
At past, if I realize that the domain that I've been assigned to work on, I no longer interest. What I did is I talked to my boss and suggest certain project that I'm interested to work on. And I will also propose some of the options. So he don't need to think. He can just look at my options and decide. Yeah. Luckily, at that time, my boss agreed. So that's great. If at that time it doesn't work out, I will consider work as my
Okay.
side hustle to fulfill the interest and the strong desire to to do. Or, but this is like a last resort. Nothing pans out, then I will ask for industry leaders. For example, like people in other company. I will talk to them and use them as my mentor, and the mentor will give me suggestion for my situation. There's a lot of online free mentor platform that you can look for industry leaders. Yeah.
All right. So sounds like there are different ways to handle this. Then how do you decide when is the right time to move on or jump around or seeking out onto the other opportunities?
So the above method I mentioned, I will try. So I won't like having the mind of, oh, I want to leave, I want to seek out for other opportunity. I will definitely try the about three method first. Yeah, because as a designer, we all love process of creating and crafting things. We really enjoy that. So if this part has been taken away, definitely will be a struggle for most of the designers. I think this is one. And second is if my boss or the company don't support me from this part growth, instead of using their authority to make you doubt yourselves,
Mm,
um, I think this will be a very strong signal for me to consider to seek out. Because in Taiwan, we call that emotional hijack, 情绪勒索.
情绪勒索.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like a mental attack to
Mm,
make you feel you are a terrible person. You are
mm,
so terrible that you cannot do well in your job and also personality. And
mm.
this will cause you like a low performance, of course, and you won't be happy. You will lose your confidence. And I think overall, this is like a very big sign for me to look out.
Mm. So when evaluating whether it's still continuing that journey with the company or with the product lines that your advice is a lot more on to kind of looking at whether really there are other negative signals that push you out, the push factors. Also, at the same time, I mean, do you feel boss or manager? As oftentimes there's usually the healthy interactions. Do you feel that if you have a good relationship with your manager, would that be also a strong pull factor for you to kind of continue to stay? Would that be also another 情绪勒索 for you?
Well, this is very interesting. Yeah, so I can share my experience about when I was in Rakuten Viki. The reason I left, um, I do have very great interaction and experience with my previous boss. But the main reason that pushed me leave is the growth of the company. So because this leads to like company directions, it's not aligned to my personal growth. What company wants currently, it's just like maintenance mode where they just want to make sure all the features and functions works properly. So the need of designer is not that strong. The need
Mm,
of innovation also not strong. And this will cause designer like, the process of creating and crafting, those opportunity will become less and less.
okay,
Yeah.
I see.
And that's the reason lah, that I decided to also move on.
Okay, all right. Let's focus on the skill sets developments. I think in your kind of professional experience, growing your journey, could you help our audience understand about what are the essential tools and methodologies that you must be very familiar with?
When it comes to like those technical skills, I think as a junior designers, will be speaking as a manager point of view, what we will be looking for. So we would expect like the designer should understand the two diamond process. Basically, this is a framework, a well-known framework that
Mm,
all designers should know, regardless
mhm.
of levels.
Okay.
And this two diamond process basically is you always have to know who you are working with, like the product who are you designing with, and these people, what are their struggle, what are their needs,
Mm.
and also knowing how to pull UX research team into this process.
Be familiar with
Yeah,
the empathy, like user empathy.
yes, correct. Yeah.
Mm.
And but some company doesn't have user research team, but that's totally fine. At least you have this empathy in mind and knowing what who you are designing for. I think that's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And second is like once you find the problems, you definitely will go into the ideation stage. Um, and usually for juniors, they will be, pair with one senior mentor.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
we, yeah, so we will ensure the problems that we given to them are well defined, so they can enjoy the ideation process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ideation process and then, being carried or mentored by more senior persons through that journey so you can kind of be more familiar what are the things to think about and to ask and then to kind of innovate in. Okay. So
Mm.
those are the hard skills that a junior developer must be developing in. Are there things that you haven't mentioned about that also good to know?
Definitely is the usability testing. Um, yeah, so the designer have to be very comfortable about like conducting a usability test on their own and knowing what to test.
Mm-hmm.
We will require them to have a basic understanding about what kind of result you're expecting on your prototype interactions and how do you translate those findings into your design decision. I think this is a very important uh, thinking process that require junior to have.
Talking about hard skill is basically more on how professionally you can deliver, do well as a designer. But I mean, in terms of the soft skill, those are actually very essential as part of the person's growth. I mean, when you first get into a company as a junior designer, what are the key essence of the soft skills that a junior designer must have acquired?
I would say for junior designers, we don't expect mature soft skills.
Mm.
Because first of all, this will be their first time experience interact with different types of stakeholders.
Mm.
And different type of stakeholders cares about different things.
Mhm.
Um, and I think for them, the most important thing is they need to listen. I think that
Mhm.
would be the most important criteria that we
Listening
want.
skill, it's also a skill. Okay.
Yes, correct, correct. Because most of the designers are very proud of their craft.
Mm.
Um, like they will have a little half time to receive feedback, or maybe they receive too much feedback. They will
Mhm.
also overwhelm. Yeah.
Mm.
So I think the most important thing is um, understanding what each stakeholders needs because each
Okay.
stakeholders focus on they are strong in their domain. For example, business team, they will very focus on how can you generate more revenue. And
Mhm.
for engineers, for them, they will definitely just want a simple design, simple code, fewer bugs.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, they are like a perfectionist on code structure, where designers are perfectionists on
Mm.
interface.
Mhm.
So so this is like we need to find a balance, a
Mhm.
middle ground.
Mhm. Uh, talk to a junior designers when they are hearing all these different feedbacks about what are from the user about what should be improved on, and then from engineering that this is not important and we should do the other things, and then from other managers that no, this doesn't align. How do they kind of take into these informations? I mean, would you recommend them to always check with the managers? Or what kind of process would you recommend to go through?
Say this would be a very long learning journey. As a junior, yeah, when I was junior, I also have a bit hard time filtering all these feedback. I don't know which one is right, which one is wrong.
Mm.
And then how I grow is like you need to learn how to filter all those informations. There will be feedback coming from internal and external. The
Mm-hmm.
internal meaning is the people who will the stakeholders that will benefit to your design can be PMs, designers, or business team. We
Mm-hmm.
can talk about internal first. So internal, so PM and engineers basically would be the person that designer would be collaborate with the most. For PM, I would think that PM and design are partner in crime, so they definitely will have the same sense about what designs will work
Mm-hmm.
better, although designer own the craft. So
Mm-hmm.
it's basically designer will create different options and discuss with PMs on which directions they will be working on. So
Okay.
it will
Okay.
be a collaborative process.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So after that, they will move on to, review with business stakeholders. And at this time, um, usually PM and you or both of you have to try to learn how to filter out what is good feedback, what is bad feedback. Because
Mm.
for me, um, one problem can use multiple solutions to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And in design is very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's no 100% perfection like this will work. It's more like finding a middle ground. So when it goes to business person, we will be more aware on okay whether this makes sense, whether we change these buttons, we change the text, the copies, whether will affect business, generate
Mm-hmm.
less revenue or more revenue. So
Mm-hmm.
coming from this angle to decide whether their feedback is valid
Mm.
or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So sounds like the skills to focus on is to first kind of make sure that they have the right takeaway message at a given
Mm.
point of time. And then based on all the feedbacks at the different stage, at different points, perhaps would need to also contextualize the feedback. What are the key things that need to pay attention to and whether to adapt or not adapt? And I mean, all these are skill set that would require training over time. Is there
Yes.
a kind of a resource or kind of ways you would recommend them to kind of go through? Is it
Mm.
always find a mentor that someone who's expert enough to go through to check in? Or
Mm.
is it an online resource? Because soft skill is really, really hard to develop in. How do you kind
Yeah.
of grow that yourself?
Yeah, exactly. I think for designers, I'll just use engineers as an example because engineers would be, to be honest, would be usually a very big blocker for your designs.
They're
Um,
always say this
yeah,
can do, this cannot do.
yeah, and that will hurt designers sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So in order to um have a good relationship with engineers, you definitely can do some homework before that. Um, so basically, like if there's an interview beforehand, I think invite engineers to your design interview process. It can help them understand the users and understand your design decision more clearly through the process because it's like third person talking to your designs. So this help them connect your decisions and your craft together.
Mhm.
I think this is one. A second is what you can prepare a little bit is learn a little bit of the front end code.
Mhm.
Um, so then
Technical
engineers,
skill. Okay.
yes, correct. But you don't need to master it, just need to know how to read it. And
Okay.
knowing that, oh, if I add this design, they're going to change what code.
Mm.
Uh, yeah. And then with this in mind, engineer will think, oh, you actually understand my language.
Mm.
They will feel, a sense of likeness. Like they were like, oh,
Okay.
they like you a
Bondings.
little
You know what I'm
bonding.
talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, bonding. And then um they will see you more than just the designers. That because most of the engineers have this stereotype that designers just want us to build something look good, but don't know how it works.
Mm,
Um, but if we also know these, like from encoding, also I think studied, um, for example, if you build mobile app, study like Apple iOS human interface guideline or Android, it's the material design guidelines. Study these two,
mm,
engineers will love you. Really,
mm,
they will, because they knew you know their language,
mhm,
and
mhm.
most of the engineers are using their guidelines to implement things.
Okay. Wow, that's a really good feedback. So it sounds like trying to get more of the online resources, some of the technical skill perhaps to help you building out that compassion, the understanding, and then
Mm,
transform the relationship with the engineer, not as a conflict relationship, but more collaborative understanding and look things from their eyes and also help you justify your proposal and all.
mm.
Wow, that's a good suggestions. Quite a lot about how to handle the feedback and then how to work in working environments, navigating through with your peer, taking the feedback and transform and improved upon. And I mean, have you met someone who, in your working experience, have you met someone who's unprofessional to you? And what kind of experience is that? Can you share?
During my career, I did encounter one type of bosses that always like your ICs to be in the office during one-on-one.
Mm.
Yeah, he don't really care about how far you live.
Oh,
They just
really?
they just want you to be there,
Oh,
face to
okay.
face.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember there's one time I was a bit late. I think late 5 minutes late.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And when I entered the room, he shouted at me and very angry
Wow.
at me, like
Wow.
saying that, "Why are you late? You're wasting my time."
Tina, you
And then,
wasted my 5 minutes.
yeah, yes, yes, exactly. And then even though I told him that I live quite far, I prefer online one-on-one because that will make me on time.
Mm-hmm.
But he still insists to see ICs in person.
Mm,
Yeah, so that struggled me a lot because every time I go to office, I need like more than 1 hour.
mm.
Yeah,
So boss is very important. I mean, as you just mentioned earlier. And how do
yeah.
you handle that situations? How do you kind of overcome the differences in opinion? I mean, seeing in person is one part, but
Hmm.
the your own personal circumstances can how do you change it? How do you improve that?
Beginning, I would say I try to convince him, can we do, online?
Okay.
Like because he's the early person, he always liked to have like 9 a.m. um morning meetings with me. In the end, I just tell him like what I will be comfortable is either 9 a.m. one-on-one online or in the afternoon face to face.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm quite brave.
How does he or she takes it? Mhm.
Of course, like he spoke emotionally. He felt like I challenged his authority. Because he wanted this way, but I give him option to
Mm,
choose. So that's where I realized the working style is a bit different.
mhm, mhm.
Uh, where where he prefer, I need to follow whatever he said instead of I give him proposal.
I see. So that's
Yeah.
how do you handle that? I mean, because the relationship in the working style is one part, but when it becomes the actual professional work, I'm
Mm.
sure that there will be other conflicts of the differences of opinions. How would
Mm.
you handle that?
For this scenarios, I have to be honest, I escalate
Mm,
to my boss
okay.
um because I feel like even the simple thing why I don't have a choice.
Mm.
Why my schedule have to fit your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, it worked. He compromised. Like
Wow.
he will meet me in the afternoon because he
Okay.
still very insists to meet me in person. So in the end, this is how we settled.
So it sounds like you try differences of approach to try to convince him. And then the one that is effective is he also has a boss. Go for the boss. The most effective ways. I think that's in my professional experiences. I do see that sometimes that would be one approach that would work because when talking to somebody rationally, with data, with other factors to convince, to try to kind of collaborate online, and it didn't work, then probably the only way is to escalate. But it's not easy. I would say
Hmm.
that, after that, I think I'm not sure if it impacts your working relationship, but certainly there will be a bit of a sensitivity kind of left behind. How do you
Hmm.
kind of overcome that? Do you just treat him out or her out for a lunch, or um, kind of what is softer ways that you massage this differences?
I try to treat him as my friend.
Mm,
I actually did invite him for coffee, and during one-on-one, I suggest not to have in the office. Then just
mm,
go to the cafeteria,
mhm, mhm,
and talk. And because he really hates me bringing my laptop all the time, so I don't
mm,
bring my laptop. We'll just chit chat and try
mm,
to open up to my life so he can know me as a person instead of
mhm.
in a profession. So that's the approach that I try.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
sounds like you also try to build that personal connections with him and then kind of build that
Mm.
mutual compassions, and help him to understand you as a person. And so
Mm.
in terms that he maybe soften a little bit to be able to kind of accommodate you also on your principles of what actually the different styles that works best for you then. Kind of taking a gear of looking at how a person's growth. So being in a corporate, oftentimes you kind of have to go through certain performance review process. We talk about the feedback, how to handle feedback and all. But does it mean that taking on more responsibility means that you automatically get a higher ranking?
This is a very interesting question. I think a lot of people think definitely yes.
Mhm.
But the true thing is also yes, to make sure that the projects you be taken matches your skill set maturity.
Don't bite
Because
more than you can chew.
correct,
Okay.
exactly. Because it might affect the project result and quality that you delivered. Also, if you are too busy, your stakeholders aren't happy, that will
Mhm.
also lower down a little bit of your performance. So I think
Mhm.
the most important thing is work with your manager, trying to understand where you are at now. Yeah, and where you are at, and using that if you really want to climb the career ladder,
Mhm.
um, your manager should be able to point out where your weakness is. And
Okay.
maybe at that time, your additional project can help you improve your weakness.
Wow. So sounds like you do have to keep a very close communication with your managers to be able to make sure you know where you stand, how you kind of continue grow your skill sets based on the projects that you take on. And do you suggest people to kind of be more vocal? How frequent do you see that this conversation should happen?
Yeah, I think you point out a very good point because a lot of ICs rarely involve their manager into their process, and then manager only know the end results about this project, so they don't know that what you have done during this project journey. Maybe you pivot several times, you
Mhm,
find out A insight, so you pivot to B solution and you test it to the certain type of users.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I think always, during the one-on-one with their boss, trying to keep them updated about what you have learned about this project, what is the progress, can really give manager visibility, and that will help your performance review even rank higher. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like keeping your managers or even your stakeholders informed of the considerations that you've gone through and your journeys already to help them kind
Yeah.
of understand you didn't just go for one solution. You actually have
Yes.
considering quite a bit of the differences and then make that decisions as you propose to move forward. Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good. So I think if I were to kind of ask you to rethink about like 10 years ago, well, as you kind of start your career, if you do a time travel back to when you just started your career, what would you tell your old self at that time?
I would say every struggle you've been through is an opportunity to growth. So don't complain.
Look at the bright
Yeah.
side. Is that
Yeah.
okay? So there's
Yeah.
always solutions to every challenges that you go through.
There always have, I wouldn't say solution, but there was always an opportunity. A struggle is an opportunity for growth, and you need to switch the mindset of
Mm,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
So growth, positive thinking, growth mindsets, it's what you would actually tell your old self to always keep that in mind. Okay.
Because when you ask this question, I do reflect myself. Really, every struggle for me, eventually I really learn something from that, and that gives me a jump for my next career, next jump. And I always use that as my next interview, job interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And what are the key ingredients or the motivations that sustain you through this long to contribute a designer in the last 10 plus years?
I realized I really enjoy solving problems and seeing my work, my craft, really helping people, and they're using it. That even better, this solution can help company growth. I think this process really very satisfied for me.
I see, I see. So seeing your product that you designed, the feature you designed is being used by a lot of people and then
Mm,
help the company either grow in revenue, grow in size of user, etc. That
mm,
business impact that helps you feel accomplished and help you continue to be a designer that you wanted to be.
yeah, that sense of achievement is very strong. Yeah, because I'm born in nature. I just like to help people.
That's great. All right. Um, Thank you for the interview today. I think that's all the question I have. Thank you all for tuning into the Tech Boss Diaries podcast. We want to bring you raw and honest conversations with Asia's tech leaders. No fluff, just real talk. Hit the subscribe button to get the next episode automatically. For questions or to reach out, email us at techbossdiary@gmail.com. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook to stay updated. From the Tech Boss Diaries team, until next time.